Today's story begins on a quiet street in Marrero, Louisiana. It's April 24th, 2016, a Sunday morning. A young mother boards a plane for a work trip. Her boyfriend stays behind to watch her 21-month-old son, Hayden. Within hours, that little boy will be fighting for his life. And within days, he will be dead. This is the case of State of Louisiana versus Seth Redell, a case that would take 6 years to reach trial, divide medical experts, and leave a grieving mother searching for justice. Julianne Lita Frederico, known publicly as adult performer Piper Perry, leaves for the airport early that morning. Her boyfriend, Seth Redell, drives her there with her toddler, HU, in the back seat. She texts him from the airport. The messages are normal at first, reminders that her son will need extra affection because he cried when she left. But then, at 8:05 a.m., everything changes. Redell sends her a message. HU just broke the fucking chain you got me. Julianne later describes him as extremely upset. Minutes later, Redell calls a friend. The friend hears panic, chaos, and the sound of running water. At 8:18 a.m., Redell's mother calls 911 to report that the child has fallen down the stairs. When paramedics arrive, something immediately feels wrong. No one meets them outside, unusual for a child emergency. After several minutes, Redell emerges carrying the toddler. The child is cold, wet, limp, and unresponsive. Redell says he put the child in a cold bath to wake him up. Deputies note that Redell appears nervous, pacing, and gives a story about a fall down stone step. But he never asks how the child is doing. At University Medical Center, trauma surgeon Dr. Jennifer Mooney examines the child. She sees severe brain injury, posturing, a sign of catastrophic neurological damage, only a small forehead bruise. The injuries do not match the story of a short fall. Neurosurgeon Dr. Frank Kilicchia reviews the CT scan. He finds a subdural hematoma, massive brain swelling, and no external trauma to explain it. He concludes the injuries are consistent with shaken baby syndrome, not a fall. An ophthalmologist confirms retinal hemorrhages in all 4 quadrants of both eyes, a classic marker of violent shaking. On April 27th, the child is declared brain dead. Forensic pathologist Dr. Dana Troxclair performs the autopsy. She finds subdural hematoma, retinal hemorrhages, cerebral edema. She rules the death a homicide caused by shaken baby syndrome. The medical findings raised questions. But investigators needed more than science. They needed a story that made sense. And the only person who could give them that story was the man who was with the child when everything happened, Seth Redell. When deputies first arrive, Seth tells them the toddler fell down the stairs.
Un simple accident.
But the injuries don't match, and investigators know it. Later, Seth changes the story. Now it's not the stairs, it's a tantrum. He says the child threw himself backward and hit his head. Investigators press him. Why lie about the stairs? Why change the story? Seth says he panicked. He didn't trust the police. He thought they'd blame him. As questioning continues, the details shift again. The fall becomes shorter. The angle changes. The timing changes. Investigators start comparing his statements to the medical timeline, and the gaps grow wider. One moment stands out. The broken necklace. Seth texts the child's mother that the toddler broke the chain, and he's furious. Minutes later, the child is unresponsive. Investigators see that as a potential trigger, a moment where frustration may have turned into something else. 6 years after the toddler's death, the case finally reaches trial. 6 years of delays, motions, expert reports, and legal battles. And now, everything comes down to 5 days in a Jefferson Parish courtroom. Prosecutors present a tight timeline. The child was healthy that morning. Seth was the only adult present. The injuries occurred in a narrow window, and the medical findings point to violent trauma. They argue the shifting stories show consciousness of guilt, that the science is clear, that the child couldn't have caused these injuries himself. The defense counters with expert testimony challenging the shaken baby diagnosis. They argue the injuries could be accidental. They highlight Seth's cooperation, his panic, his claim that he tried to revive the child in the bath. They say he lied out of fear, not guilt. In a risky move, Seth testifies. He tells the jury he never harmed the child, that the fall was sudden and unexpected. But under cross-examination, the inconsistencies become harder to explain. After hours of deliberation, the jury rejects second-degree murder, but they also reject the idea of an accident. On May 6, 2022, after a 5-day trial, the jury unanimously finds Redell guilty of negligent homicide, a lesser offense than second-degree murder, and a middle ground that reflects both doubt and responsibility. He is sentenced to 5 years in prison, the maximum allowed. For the prosecution, it feels like a compromise. For the defense, it's a blow. And for the mother, it's devastating. She believes the evidence showed intentional harm. Redell challenges the conviction, arguing the evidence wasn't enough and the trial was flawed. His expert was improperly excluded. The appellate court rejects the arguments and affirms the conviction on April 26, 2023. For the child's mother, the appeal decision brings closure, but not peace. She speaks publicly for the first time, calling for stronger child abuse laws. She says the system failed her son. That 5 years isn't justice. That no parent should have to bury a child and watch the person responsible serve so little time. A broken necklace, a panicked phone call, a story that kept changing, and a child who never had a chance to speak for himself. Friends and family describe a bright, curious toddler, a child who loved music, toys, and cuddling with his mother. His death leaves a hole that can't be filled. Birthdays pass, holidays pass, and every year, his mother marks the anniversary with a message of grief and remembrance. This case ends with a family forever changed, a community divided, and a justice system grappling with the limits of certainty. But above all, it ends with the memory of a little boy whose life mattered, and whose story deserved to be told.